this video, we take to the streets of Cambridge to explore the community's perception of the election process. Through interviews and thoughtful roundtable discussions with community members, we delve into the nuances of civic engagement. We'll examine how much impact individuals feel they have on the political process and uncover diverse perspectives on our current political system. Audible has collaborated with the Loop Lab on a series of pieces exploring the diverse factors shaping political participation and decision-making in the Cambridge community. Let's find out what they have to say on the importance of voting.
Let's jump in.
All right, so the first question is, why is it important to vote?
You want to start?
Sure. I might have a little bit more softer of an answer here. In all seriousness, in state and local elections, we have the ballot initiatives now. Like, those are where you're going to actually impact action, where you're actually going to be able to change your communities. As I always say, politics is local, and that's where I think on those particular levels, when you're complaining about things that are going on in your city, the people that are most directly responsible are your city councilors, are your state aldermen, are your mayors. So those are the people that you should be making sure that they're doing what they're doing. If they're not, then you gotta get them out and congratulate them when they are. The same thing at the state level, like making sure that voting impacts power, change, and direct action. And at least for the local and state level, that's what I believe why voting matters. Now, obviously get to a later conversation about to kick it to Nico of why people feel the need to not vote, but like in a general sense, the history, the suffrage of voting and the direct impact that it can have in your life today, tomorrow, parking, bike lanes, etc. Like those all matter at a local level. So I'll give it to Nico.
Yeah, I mean, everything Elijah said is true. And people paid, the cost in blood, right, for us to be able to go in or to take voting in such a leisurely way that we do now. I think about this again through the lens of a coach, right? It's not the critic who counts, it's the man in the stadium. But I think there's something more important than voting, which I think actually requires a little bit more work, right? And that's creating political willpower, right? Because you can vote people in and out, right? But if your movement, if your ideas, if your beliefs don't have real organization behind them, like a real power, right? And power influences all types of things. It can it can be a monetary power, it can be a physical power, it can be just a coalition of people, of like-minded people. But you need that to then sway the opinions of the very people that you're voting for. And so again, it's important to vote for people who are willing to at least hear your issues out, but until you give them a reason to really care, right, that vote is largely ceremonial.
The point that these two made related very closely with one of the interviews we conducted on the streets.
Well, I think there are some people who really believe that their vote is counted and it expresses their opinion and it's an important thing to do. And I think other people maybe vote because they feel obligated, but they're not so sure it really moves the dial in any sort of big picture.
I think what I tell people who aren't sure whether their vote matters is to think about local elections, because local elections are often decided by just a few votes.
Yeah.
And so your vote so much matters. And for state elections, the state representative election this year in Cambridge was decided by 44 votes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And so, and some of the city council elections have been decided by 4, 5, 9 votes.
Wow, that's
But
awesome.
it goes back to your local election point. Like, that's the election you should be turning out for.
Right.
Exactly.
Is your local election.
And then I think if people get into the habit of voting in local elections, they're going to vote in state elections, they'll vote in national elections.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What made you vote in this election?
Yeah, I'll take this one first. First and foremost, I think it's important to vote for the local ballot initiatives. We talk a lot about how, let's just be for real. I'm not gonna, your vote in Massachusetts, I don't want to be so cavalier and say it doesn't matter, right? But as we talked about earlier, Massachusetts is going blue. We know that, right? The electoral votes are kind of a given. But what's not a given is, and again, I understand the importance of the federal government and the policies that they make, whether they're abroad or at home, right, are going to impact you in your day to day, right? How you run the economy is going to affect how you buy groceries at the store, right? How countries relate to us in our foreign relations, what our military is doing, it's going to affect you on your day to day. First and foremost, that was my biggest motivation for going into the ballot box. or the booth, this election. I'll turn it over to Booker.
Sure. So I'll continue what Nico said. So when people were dealing with car-related issues, so I was going and conversing with the DMV, like those when we talk about politics making an impact, it's making an impact on not only your everyday life, but being the intermediary, being that middle individual that can actually reach those agencies that people don't normally get. So the people who run and the people that win are very important because those are the people that are going to directly relate to how you get issues solved throughout your day-to-day issues.
First question I have for you Ben, is, do you think that people in Cambridge vote, and then why or why not?
I believe Cambridge people vote. It's a big thing. They have parties, all that other stuff. I mean, also, there's going to be people who aren't going to vote, but
Yeah,
for the most part,
I didn't know that. They have parties around here? That's
oh yeah, and as many people as I see on election day coming to get edibles, they vote.
That's real. My second question for you is, do you think that voting matters to most people? So I guess from your last answer would be yeah.
A split. I think it matters to some people. It matters to. It does, but I think that it should matter to everyone because it's going to affect their lives. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't care.
What would you say for yourself?
Oh, listen, I can't complain unless I vote.
Yeah. Do you think that people in Cambridge vote, and why or not?
It depends on what side they are on. I feel like the undecided voters are the ones that usually don't go and vote because they'll hear one thing in the news, and they're depending on what side they're on, they'll either choose not to vote because it's already decided they feel like, or they go out and vote and try to say their piece.
Do you think people's opinions / concerns are being taken seriously during this election?
Sorry.
This one's a good one. Let's go.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The Democratic Party has completely failed. Working class people, right? I guess we can generalize the average American is completely out of touch. There's all of these things right now, looking at different demographics and how they're voted. But the one that I want to, really, hone in on, right, is the income gap. Right, is that the Democratic Party, the majority of the support that we're seeing are people who are making over $100,000 a year, right? These people are so detached, right? And they left a incredible vacuum at a time when all Americans, regardless of your political identity, right, are struggling, right? How do you afford groceries? How do you afford gas? How do you afford healthcare? How do you afford education, right? And I think that for me, like looking at the election through a lens of like a post-mortem is one of the biggest reasons why the Democrats lost as big as they did. I would say on a local level, I would say I also experienced that as well. And so oftentimes, I guess when you look at the local side, everyone's liberal, I guess, right? But what are the issues that are actually being talked about? And there's nothing wrong with those issues, but are those the most important ones? When human life is at stake,
Exactly.
when people's livelihood is at stake, when people's status is at stake.
I think the issue that we have here is that because people don't have the time, energy, or resources to want to go and invest into the political game, they say, I'm not going to do it. So then not only do they withhold their vote, but their vote isn't then being felt because it's like, if you do vote, you're going to vote for me regardless, which is an issue because so many people then feel as if, why am I going to vote if my vote doesn't matter anyway and nobody's coming to help me? Not only did we have this wide variety and range of people swaying or in theory swaying to the right, but also people are just like, hey, we're going to have a transactional nature at this point now. And if you're not going to do anything for me to succeed, if you're not going to highlight issues that matter to me, if you're not going to actually accomplish anything, I hate to say it, but in the Democratic Party, they talked about black people kind of being shooed away. Because if you don't vote for us, who are you going to vote for? So not only are our concerns not being met, but we're being placated or being minimalized of what our actual voice matters and impacts. So why people have these concerns and then also might not vote is because I'm fed up with doing, they highlighted with black women and black men in particular, we're tired of going to bat for everybody and not getting a return on investment of what we fought for. We can't keep putting democracy and civility and civil rights above everything and then continue to get let down, and then we're the ones that are facing the brunt of the consequences in itself. So on a local level and then on a national level, going back to the point that I highlighted, what more can we do? If my concerns aren't being met, I'm going to go and focus on my community as we've highlighted. I'm going to do what I can to make sure that I'm good. But if I am not going to make anything more, if I'm not going to be able to do anything more and I've exhausted myself, then my concerns aren't going to be met. And in this form of democracy, maybe they never will.
And to this point, right? Biden famously said, if you vote for Trump, you're not black. Right? And this man has put his foot in his mouth a million times as president. I don't need to relive every single one. And I think there's also a big difference of what he said and what he meant. So I'll give him a little bit of grace on that.
You're a better man than me.
However, right? When people have legitimate criticism of that comment, they say, well, they pull up 5 to 10, negative things that Trump has said about the African American community.
Yeah,
we know that. Right. We don't need convincing. We need you to atone and address what you said. Yeah. Right. And so and I don't want to speak too much in generalities, right? But there's a saying in Cambridge, and I think Cambridge speaks because it's the heart of of liberal politics, right? It's the beating heart of the.
Too much so.
Yeah, and so there's the person who has the Black Lives Matter bumper sticker, but will call the police on you in traffic.
Yeah, no,
right. There's
the
the person with help me out with these. But there's so many. You go in these elite spaces, and then you're, as an activist or as someone who's trying to influence political thought, you're then talked down to. Yeah. Right. You're then belittled. You're then And don't get me wrong, there's good people doing good work everywhere, right? But the amount of kind of racism, I was gonna say institutional, but systemic, that you oftentimes feel from the very people who are supposed to be on your side, right? And and they always want to say, but it's the lesser of two evils. But what about the evil that we're seeing right now? Yeah. And so I think Black people have a right to be frustrated with the Democratic Party. I think working class people have a right to be frustrated with the Democratic Party. And yet we still, right, overwhelmingly as Black people gave the Democrats our vote.
In conclusion, voting is crucial, even if you don't have all the privileges, like time or money, that make it easier for some people to participate. The options on the ballot may not perfectly align with your views, but casting your vote is still important to make your voice heard. Start by getting involved at the local level, where issues that matter most to you are often decided. Whether you're supporting a candidate or weighing in on a ballot measure, make your voice heard and inspire others in your community to do the same. Every vote matters, so be sure to exercise your fundamental right.